Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. Hello, welcome back to Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. I'm your host, Big Les. We're going to be talking about halfbacks and 5'8". We're going to do both of the halves in this episode to mash the two episodes together. We're going to be ranking our top 5 5'8" and top 5 halfbacks for the 2025 season, not going into the 2025 season, but for the 2025 season. If I'm predicting form for the year 2025, by the end of the year, who are going to be the top 5 players in their position? We're doing that for 5'8". We're also going to be doing it for halfback, so it's a little bit different than ranking players going into the year, and I thought it'd be a little bit more interesting and exciting, and throw a few different calls and different curveballs at you guys. I know there's been a few. Obviously, Xavier Savage was probably the more controversial one out of the wingers, leaving KP out of the fullback list. That definitely caught a few people off guard, but I think that this one's a little bit more simpler. I think that this one's definitely one that a lot of more people will agree with. And to be honest, looking at the list for 5'8" now, there's probably a change I'm already going to make live on recording. But let's get into it. These are my top 5 5'8" for 2025. By the end of the 2025 season, who are going to be the top 5'8"? Let's get stuck into it. So before recording, my list, the bottom 2 guys on my list were Nicho Hynes at 5 and Burton at 4. I'm going to flip the script there, and I'm going to have Burton at 5 with Nicho Hynes at 4. Burton, this year with the Doggies, obviously having that finals experience from 2024. Going into 2025 season for the whole club, not just for Birdo, but for the whole Bulldogs club. It's going to be great to have that finals experience, to know what you're up against, basically. A lot of the teams that were in finals last year are quite similar. There have been a few changes here and there. But a lot of the teams that were in finals, are in the top 8 last year. Those teams are pretty similar coming into this year. And you'd probably think that there are going to be a few changes into how the top 8 is going to look this year, with how even the competition is now, and obviously different players moving to different clubs. The competition is even more even than it was last year, if that sentence even makes sense. And I think that Matt Burton, he's going to really benefit from that. I think that this Bulldog side just keeps getting better and better every single year. Obviously, new recruits and things like that. They've got a really solid pack now. Sam Hughes, Tom Amone, Max King, these big boppers through the middle. Then you got guys like Moran. You got guys like Salmon, who, it depends if he's going to be in the 17 or not. You've got a really nice, well-rounded side now for the Dogs. Obviously paired with the stars of Critter, of guys like Tracy at the back there at fullback. Kickow, I think, is in for a massive year. So that Matt Burton, I think he's going to really thrive off other guys succeeding around him. And I think he's in for a huge year. And I think the Bulldogs are going to go quite well and land in the top 8 again in season 2025. So I think Burton's going to have a massive year. I've got him at number 5. I think that he is definitely going to be one of the top 5'8" of the season. And I think he's really going to unlock his game as a 5'8". He seems to be still playing in the mold of a third centre on the field, just with his running game being a lot more run-centric, late footwork at the line, running those really nice hold lines as well, more like a centre. I think we're really going to start to see him break down the nuances of a 5'8", not just the great kicking game, but all the other elements of a great half. He's really going to start breaking that down and become more of a 5'8" this season. I just have a feeling that that's the Matt Burton we're going to see really evolving into an out-and-out 6, rather than having a lot of characteristics of a centre, plus the amazing kicking game, the bombs, things like that we see from Burton on a weekly basis. So Burton at 5, I think he's in for a massive year. Number 4, Nicho Hynes. The reason I'm flipping the script there and I'm putting Hynes from 5 to 4, I think that Hynes, with the Sharks now, obviously getting a guy like Adam Fanua-Blake in the building is going to be huge. Having that leader through the middle of the pack, really just, being that vocal guy through the middle, playing big minutes. There has been reports saying that Adam Fanua-Blake's minutes are going to be cut down a little bit, which for Supercoach guys, that's not really the best. For Sharkies guys, it's probably a good thing sharing the minutes around with some of those younger guys, and the impact guys off the bench. But having that leader generally through the middle, you think he's going to play, 45, 50 minutes a game. Just the impact you're going to get from a guy like that through the middle, especially the form that we've seen from Adam Fanua-Blake last year and in years prior at the New Zealand Warriors. Really excited to see the impact that he's going to have on that Sharky side through the middle. But more importantly, the go forward that Nicho Hynes is going to get and allow him to play his game. Not only Addin Fonua-Blake and that impact, but Nicho Hynes, no origin pressure, no rep pressure, and no pressure to run the team. I think that's going to be key for Nicho Hynes. I'd be taking the goal-kicking duties off him and giving them to Braden Trindle. I'd be putting Braden Trindle at halfback and moving Hynes into the 5'8 position. Absolutely no responsibilities. Just really simplifying Nicho Hynes' game and letting him do what he wants on the field, playing like a second fullback 5'8 sort of hybrid role there, like we've seen Hynes do previously, just in the 7 jersey, but this time with no pressure to run the team on his back. Yes, he can still have a lot of say as to where plays go on tackle 3s and tackle 4s, but I think that he just not having that pressure to actually run the team and for Trindle to be the halfback and the guy steering the ship, I think it's going to do worlds for Nicho Hynes' game. So having him at the number 4 there, I think he's in for a massive season. And to be honest, I think he could play better this year than how he played in his Dally M year at halfback. That's how good I think Nicho Hynes is going to be. Is he going to be the best 5'8 in 2025? I don't think so, because I think there's a few guys that are in for massive seasons above him. But I think that he will probably play better than how he did in his Dally M year. And that just goes to show, one, how good I'm thinking Nicho Hynes is going to be, but two, how good the other guys are going to be around him, in my opinion, as well, and how highly I'm going to rate some of these other 5'8s and how their seasons are going to go as well. So Burton at the 5, I've got Nicho Hynes at the 4. Number 3, I've got Dylan Brown. I think that Dylan Brown, with all of the contract dramas and saga and all the things like that, I think Nicho Hynes. I think that Dylan Brown is in for a massive season with the Parramatta Eels. A massive season. Obviously coming off the back of a pretty up and down year for himself. A lot of pressure on Dylan Brown moving into 7 at parts during the season with Moses out for a long period of that year. Having Moses back full time with him, I think is going to be huge. And, similar to Melbourne, Brown and Moses haven't had a full season together yet, or at least maybe even one all up. But they haven't really had a full season both together for 27 games to really gel. And I think that is going to be crucial going into 2025 if they're to play finals footy. Getting them on the park together for the full 27 games, and maybe beyond that if they do go deep into finals. But that's the goal, I think, for the Parramatta Eels, is just to keep those guys on the field together, gelling for as long as possible. I think regardless of what happens with the contract, I think that if the Parramatta Eels, the premiership window is slightly open, if they're to really pounce at that, Brown and Moses have to be on the field together a lot during 2025, or at least the full time of 2025 together. Otherwise, it's just not going to work, and that premiership window is just going to close. So, Dylan Brown, he sits at the number 3 for me. I think that with everything that's riding on 2025 for the Parramatta Eels, regardless what happens with the contract, I think that he's in for a massive season. And I think that, while the contract thing could break his season for sure, I do think that he is going to sort of put that aside a little bit. Yes, obviously he has to get it sorted by round 10, but I think that he has to put it aside a little bit or sort it out relatively quickly early in the year, maybe even before round 1, so that he can just have that time to focus on his footy at Parramatta and have a really successful season there. And if he can do that, he's going to be one of the better 5'8s in the competition. We already know, or have an idea of where his ceiling is at. I want to see him reach that ceiling for sure, Dylan Brown. Number 2 and 1 for me, I think that this is going to be a massive battle throughout the year between these 2 and 1 here. Tom Dearden and Cameron Munster. I think that both of these guys are going to have massive seasons, and particularly the first half of the year for both of them, I think is going to be insane, because they're both going to be battling for the Queensland at number 6, because for the first time in a long time, I don't think that 6 jersey for Cameron Munster is necessarily locked in. I really don't. I think that he is fighting for that jersey with Tom Dearden, and that is going to be a key battle going into this year between these two. Even if they're not playing against each other, Melbourne v Cowboys, they're going to be playing some of their best football in the hopes that Billy Slater picks them in that number 6 jersey. I think that regardless of what happens with the 6, they'll both be there in a 14 capacity, one of them, whoever doesn't get picked at 6. I think that's most likely going to be Dearden there in the 14 if Munster comes out and kills it. But if we're in a world where Munster maybe has some injury concerns following these groin and hip issues, or if he comes out and doesn't have an immediate impact, if there's a few lingering injuries here and there throughout the preseason for Munster, 30 years old, if he doesn't have a crash hot start with Melbourne, which I think he will, have a crash hot start. I think that this battle and it's going to ignite something in them both. But if he doesn't, and Tom Dearden comes out and he kills it for the Cowboys, I could see Tom Dearden stealing that jersey as well. So a lot riding on this battle here. I've got Dearden at 2, Munster at 1. I think that Munster's going to be, or solidify himself as the best 5'8" in the competition. I am really excited to see how Munster goes this year. Just staying on the park for the full 27 rounds following last year, and obviously all of the hip and groin injuries that he had, surgeries, things like that. Just keeping him on the field full time. And that goes for a lot of the spine too for the Melbourne Storm. You obviously have Harry Grant playing Origin, Munster most likely playing Origin, and obviously injuries in the past. You've had Pappenhausen out for the past 3 to 4 years at different stages, out with serious hard tissue injuries. You've also had Jerome Hughes out with injury. Like, this spine hasn't had a full year together as a whole. We talked about Parramatta and Brown and Moses, how they haven't had a full season together yet. But we're looking at a complete spine that has not had a consecutive 27 rounds together for different reasons. And the fact that they're still doing as well as they are is just incredible. And the fact that we've got them as favourites for the premiership, regardless of that fact, it speaks on the Melbourne system. It speaks on how good these players are. But yeah, look, just keeping all of them on the park is going to be massive. And if Munster does stay on the park full time, he is going to have a massive, massive season for the Melbourne Storm. And in general, he'll be solidified as one of the better 5'8" in the competition, bar none. So really excited for Munster. Tom Dearden the same. Big year for him. I think that he makes Origin regardless. I think the good thing about Dearden is that he's got the body shape to come off the bench and play a little bit of dummy half and maybe replace Ben Hunt in that 14 sort of capacity, which I think really aids him because, if he was similar build and this playing style to, not even playing style, but just a similar build to a Cameron Munster, I think that would really hinder his chances of him being in that 14 jersey and playing that sort of role. But because he has that smaller and nimble body shape, and that obviously suits a 9 jersey, I think that really aids him. And obviously, if he doesn't make the 6, he can at least make the 14. Munster's a little bit different because Munster, you wouldn't be putting Cameron Munster on to play hooker. I think that, if you're putting Munster on, it's in a roaming sort of capacity. So you really can't put him in that 14 jersey and replicate the hooker 1-2 punch that you usually like. But if you were to steer away from that, maybe that could work where Munster goes to 14 and then Dearden maybe shifts from 6 to 9. But even then, it's just too much to think about. It's too complicated. I think that you just got to keep it simple. I think that it's most likely going to be Munster back in the 5'8 jersey for Queensland with Dearden at 14. Again, if Munster gets a serious injury or, if he struggles to get back to great form, which I think is going to be impossible, then I think that obviously Dearden's a sniff as well for Queensland in the number 6 jersey. But regardless, I think they'll be the best 5'8s by the end of 2025. They're going to be the best 5'8s in the competition form-wise. So my list is Burton at 5, Hines at 4, Brown at 3, Dearden at 2, Munster at 1. Notable mentions in this list. Just going off the top of the head because we didn't write a list for this one. Lockie Galvin, for me, is going to be a big one. Obviously, with a decent pack behind him. Terrell May, Fanua Pole, David Clemmer, Alex Twall. You've got a really nice pack, which is quite an underrated part of the West Tigers going into this season, particularly with Terrell May, who's going to be playing big minutes there. They're going to get a lot of go forward through the middle, the West Tigers. I think that Luai is going to really benefit from that. I also think that Galvin is going to benefit from that as well. And yeah, I think that Galvin, winning all of the fitness tests, he broke the he broke the Bronco record last year. He's broken his own record again this year with 4 minutes and 12 seconds. I'm only hitting 6 minutes flat now as a front rower. So for him to be doing what he's doing is just absolutely insane. Yeah, Lockie Galvin, outstanding. I think that he'll definitely be up there for sure if the Tigers go on to have a good season. Other 5'8" that I think could have a really big year and get close to this list. Cody Walker, definitely one. If South Sydney have a really good season, then Cody Walker will definitely be up there. Obviously, under Wayne Bennett, he has a really good record, win-wise, but also form-wise. He plays really good footy. Supercoach-wise, he's very good. So I think that under Wayne Bennett, he's going to get back to some of his best football and really start to age like fine wine there, Cody Walker. So he'll definitely be one. Cody Walker, Lockie Galvin. Blaze Salungi will be a watch. I'm not sure he'll be near this list, but I think he has the potential to be. And what I mean by that is if he can really lock down exactly what his role is in that side, which I think will be a lot more of a run-centric type of role to allow Cleary to run the team and roam both sides of the ruck and take a lot more control of the team. I think if he sticks to his role there, complements Cleary well, finishes really well, and sticks to that run-centric style of play, but also, as I said, assisting Cleary on those left side raids, I do think that Blaze Talangi could be in for a huge season there in the number 6. And I think that the pressure on his jersey is also either going to make or break him a little bit there because he obviously got Cole, whereby if you put Jack Cole in, obviously then Cleary and Cole can share the load there, both being more 7s than 6s. They can sort of own their sides of the field and really complement each other nicely, organising together and sort of evening out the load. Whereas obviously Talangi or even a Dane Laurie, if he was to jump in there, it'd sort of be Cleary running both sides of the ruck and running the team, and then obviously Dane Laurie or Blaze Talangi running wise. But there's definitely plenty of pressure, on that 6 jersey for Penrith. So it'll be a really interesting season for Blaze Talangi. Is he going to be one of the better 5'8"s? I think it could be up here or it could be down here for Blaze Talangi. We'll have to wait and see. Defensively as well, there's going to be definitely a few question marks there. But I think I've pretty much covered it in terms of the best 5'8"s by the end of the 2025 season. You've obviously got Nico, Burton, Brown, Dearden, Munster. Honourable mentions, you've got Galvin, Cody Walker, and then potentially, you got Blaze Talangi in there as well as a little bit of a smoky shout. Let's take a look at the halfback jersey. As I said, we're doing 5'8" and halfbacks in this episode, so it is going to be a little bit longer rather than that 10 to 15 minute episode going through one position. But halfbacks, let's get stuck in. Top 5 halfbacks by the end of the 2025 season. At number 5. Adam Reynolds. The reason I've got him so low on the list this year, one is because we've got some outstanding halfbacks in the competition, but 2, injury. I think that injury is really going to be a concern for Adam Reynolds. Past 2 years, 3 years, I think it's 2 years. I think I got it right the first time. 2 years at the Broncos. He has had about 4 or 5 stages of injury that have been, keeping him out of the game for long periods. I really don't want to see an injury-hindered season for Adam Reynolds in 2025. I really don't. I think that it's reliant. Their season is so reliant on Adam Reynolds and how he goes. It's not funny. I mean, they're starting the season with a combination of Ben Hunt and Jock Madden because obviously Ezra Mam's out as well. Adam Reynolds set to be out for the opening rounds of the competition depending on the extent of the injury. You're starting with a halves pairing that isn't going to be the halves pairing in round 27 or even round 10, 11. So that's going to be interesting. Obviously, Mam and how he comes back and his psyche and his mentality is going to be interesting as well after obviously all the backlash and criticism following his off-field dramas as well. how that combination works, the mindset of Ezra Mam, and obviously how that works with Adam Reynolds and that combination and how that evolves. But Adam Reynolds, injury-wise, it's going to play a big part on the Broncos season, especially when, he is one of the better halfbacks in the competition. If Reno is on the park for 27 rounds fully fit, at the best, he is number 5 for me. His kicking game is extraordinary. The best parts of 2024 for Adam Reynolds showed you why he is one of the better halfbacks in the competition. And in my opinion, he probably has the best kicking game of any halfback ever at his best as well. Just those last tackle kicks, 40-20s, he's the king of them. He's got a really sweet kicking game. The ball seems to always go the way that he wants it to go, other than on short dropouts, which, is questionable. Obviously, look back at that grand final. But other than that, the ball always seems to go where Adam Reynolds wants it to go. He's one of the better kickers all time for me, in my opinion, as a halfback. I think that at his best, he is one of the better halfbacks in the competition. And if he's fully fit for 27 rounds, he will be up there in the top 5 by the end of the 2025 season. That's being Harry hopeful over here. Number 4, DCE. I think that he, as we've sort of said and alluded to before, aging like fine wine. I think that DCE over the past few years has certainly done that. Playing some great footy, not losing a beat or skipping a beat in any regard. His kicking game's fantastic. He's got a real great understanding of the game, DCE, and has learnt so much in the many years that he's been playing the game. 15 years, I think it's been now, but I might be putting a little bit of GST on that just quietly. Wouldn't be surprised if I am. But DCE, I love watching him play. I know that he's probably one of the more criticised guys, obviously, with what happened with the Titans. Titans fans don't really love DCE that much, but just as a fan of the game, and just I love watching great halfbacks play and just their psyche and just watching them, break down different situations and things like that. He is certainly one of my favourites to watch. He is so silky and so clean. And, even as a New South Welshman in Game 1 of Origin, watching some of those cutout passes and that try that he scored full field as well, or set up. He is just such a weapon, DCE, and he's got so much smarts for the game. His timing is always outstanding. There's always a few guys where the game just moves in slow motion, and DCE is one of those guys. And Manly, for me, as a whole, I think are a premiership threat this year. If Tommy stays on the field, they are certainly that. I think that having Tom Trbojevic on the field as well gives Manly such a boat of confidence as well. So I think that Turbo, if he's on the field all year, if DCE is on the field all year, obviously bar the Origin period, I think that Manly will make a very deep run into the finals, and I think that they will be potentially in the grand final against the Melbourne Storm. I'm not looking anything in yet as far as grand final predictions go. But I certainly think that the Manly Seagulls, they'll be close. Sorry if you heard that burp too, by the way. I thought I tried to hide that as best as I could, but didn't really work out too well. Let's go into number 3. I've got Jerome Hughes. Really like Jerome Hughes. You talk about guys that you love watching and breaking down certain situations. Hughes is probably one of my favourite halfbacks to watch. And particularly his game is so interesting because it's a halfback game crafted on the game of a fullback, just with the running game that he's got, obviously hitting certain holes and the footwork late at the line, breaking down different situations more like a fullback than a halfback, but then adding that little layer of skill with the kicking game and the passing game as a halfback would. The fact that Melbourne have been able to craft him from a fullback to a halfback in this sort of way, and then for him to be the Dally M Player of the Year last year as well, at that halfback position too, Dally M Halfback of the Year, Dally M Player of the Year. He is such a great player to watch. I think that Melbourne are going to be in the grand final. I think that's pretty much locked in. I think that they're going to learn a lot from last year's grand final and just how things seem to slip away a little bit in certain situations. Penrith getting inside their heads a little bit towards the back end of the game. I do think that they'll learn a lot from that. I think that the form that we saw last year, copy and paste that onto this year, except they're probably going to win maybe 1 or 2 more games and they're going to be really dominant in this competition. I think they'll peak to very late and they'll go from great to greater and sort of really peak nicely towards the finals period too. But Jerome Hughes, love watching him play. He is such a great player, and if the Melbourne Storm are humming, they get their spine on the field together for 27 games, he'll be one of the better players again in 2025. I don't know if he'll be the Dally M Player of the Year again in 2025, but he certainly has the potential to be. Number 2 for me is Mitchell Moses. Now, that might be a little bit of a controversial one, putting Hughes below Moses after the year we saw from Jerome Hughes. But Moses, for me, new-looking Parramatta Eels side. You got a lot more of a mobile pack, as we talked with Paracave about on the podcast, which will be coming out on the 5th of Feb. Stay tuned for that. We did talk about it on the podcast with Troy from Paracave Podcast, just about how the side's looking going into this year. It does seem to be a lot more of a mobile pack, and that, for me, reeks of Moses. It just suits Moses' style of play. It suits Brown's style of play. And I think that this will be the new Parramatta style of play too. And I think it's going to catch a lot of teams off guard next year because, a lot of teams last year, you look at Parramatta, you look at their pack, it's a big pack. They didn't have that mobile 13. And Hopgood, who was out for majority of last year, they had often Hangawa at 13. So it was basically a 3 middle forward pack. To 3 big boppers all starting at once. And, it was a lot slower of an attacking game because you obviously had these big boppers through the middle. Having a little bit less size and a little bit more mobility through the pack, it's going to allow them to move at a much faster rate, quicker play the balls. And obviously, Moses loves a quick play the ball. Brown loves a quick play the ball. They're going to thrive off that, in my opinion. And Yongi, obviously, being a little bit of a faster fullback as well, faster mover, he's going to suit that style of play perfectly too. I think that this is really going to work out well for Parramatta. They're going to be a side that suits Mitchell Moses for the first time in a little bit as well. And if Moses can stay on the field for the full year, if Brown can stay on the field for the full year, and they can gel as a combination, Moses is in for a massive season. And we talked about the Queensland battle of Dearden and Dearden and Munster. Fucking having a mind blank in the middle of a podcast. Fantastic. We talked about the Dearden and Munster rivalry battles in the battle for the Queensland number 6 jersey. Moses and Cleary in the battle for the 7 jersey is going to be massive too. I think that Moses is in for a massive season. For me, Cleary will be the best halfback of 2025. And the reason I've got Cleary as the best halfback of 2025, or by the end of 2025, when we're going through and ranking players by position for the 2025 season, why I think Nathan Cleary is going to be there is because he's just going to have 2 times more ball than what he had when Luai was his halves partner. He's going to be controlling this side a lot. We talked a little bit about on the Paracave podcast as well, not giving too much away, but we did talk about Cleary and his role. And obviously we talked about Tedesco. And recently, obviously, being a little bit overbearing for the Roosters and getting overly involved in certain situations, and how he's managed to sort of carve that back and allow his teammates to sort of have their say on plays as well. I think that finding that balance as a Nathan Cleary in this side too is going to be super important. He's going to have plenty of ball, a lot more ball than what he had with Luai as his number 6, and he's going to be pretty much having the say in every single set, but not getting overly involved. I think a better example than Tedesco with the Roosters previously in previous seasons, I actually think that the best example for this is Nicho Hynes in Origin recently, and obviously why that didn't work well. Obviously overbearing. He wanted the ball in every situation. He wanted to be the guy that had the say on the last play and the winning play and things like that. And as a result of that, he had like 30, 35, 40 runs in an Origin game for 100 and so metres, which on the stat sheet looks fantastic. But you actually watch his game, it's a big reason as to why New South Wales weren't able to expand their attack, because everything was going through Nicho Hynes. And as a result of that, it was very one-dimensional footy. So I think that finding that balance for Nathan Cleary, not being overbearing, not having 30, 40 runs in a game. And if you do, make sure you're sharing out the ball as well. But just finding that even balance where, yes, you're going to take control of your side, you're roaming both sides of the ruck and having a say on the attacking footy on either side of the field, but then finding the balance to even pull back and say, you know what, Blaze, have that short side raid. Obviously have that 3-on-4 attacking shape where you're going to run through that gap and score a try, or whether you're going to set up one of your edge back rowers there on the left side, whether that be a Sorensen and Isaiah Papali'i. He's got a great left edge there, Blaze Talangi, but even just pulling back and let him have those short side raids, or let him have a say on where the attack goes on tackle 4 and 5, if they want to run it on the left side and last tackle, things like that. Being able to step back and let other players, even a Yowie, an experienced guy with great ball skills through the middle there. And Edwards, if Edwards wants a right side short raid, let him have that as well, or be a key part of that. Letting your other spine players inject themselves as well, I think is going to be huge for Nathan Cleary. But I think that he's going to do that well. He's the ultimate professional. He's a 4-time premiership winner in a row. I think that he is going to do very, very well in season 2025. And for me, if I'm throwing an early cab in the rank, I think that he's going to be the Dally M Player of the Year. I think that this is his year, Nathan Cleary. He owns Origin. He has a massive year for the Panthers. He takes control of this side. They go on a late season run, potentially for a 5th straight premiership. I'm not saying that they're going to be in the grand final because I am a little bit weary. I need to see some footy first. But I certainly think that they are going to be close, which is obvious. And I think that the key perpetrator of that is going to be, or the key guy in making that happen is going to be Nathan Cleary. Honourable mentions for halfbacks, thinking off the dome. Jerome Luai is an obvious one for me. I think that, pending this leg injury that he has, and we've only just got the news recording this on Tuesday night, pending this knee injury that he has, it's obviously going to be interesting to see how much footy he plays. Hopefully it's not a serious injury. But if he's on the park for a long period, gelling with Lockie Galvin, great pack behind them. We said the same thing about Lockie Galvin in an honourable mention 4-5-8. Flipping that onto Jerome Luai at the halfback position, I think that he is going to really benefit of having that pack rolling behind him in Terrell May, Fanua Pole, Dave Clemmer, these sort of guys. He's going to really love that and obviously thrive off that as well. So Jerome Luai for me is definitely going to be up there for guys that have big seasons. Is he in this top 5 lists? I think this is the top 5 list you're going to be reading out for the next few years, obviously pending DCE and Renault. But I think that those three, Hughes, Moses, Cleary, at least for the next 5 years, we're going to be reading those names out in our top 5 ranking for that season. Luai, an honourable mention. Halfbacks, I think not so much for top 5 halfbacks of the year, but Jamal Fogarty from the Canberra Raiders, I think, is definitely going to be a watch. I think that, for me at least, the Raiders are probably closer to the bottom of the ladder this year. I think they've got a lot of question marks, and there's going to be a lot of changes in the spine. We've seen hints of it throughout the year of them having really long losing patches. I think it's going to be a really interesting year for Jamal Fogarty. Obviously didn't get to have as much impact as he would have wanted being out with that bicep injury at the start of the year. But I think it will be interesting to see the impact he has on this side in season 2025. Kicking game-wise, he's probably one of the better ones in the competition as well. It will be interesting to see how he plays as an individual, but also in that team as well, how much impact he can have on that side. And, if they prove me completely wrong and, again, near the 8, that's going to be really interesting. He'll definitely be one to watch. You know what? A great honourable mention is Isaiah Katoa for me. If the Dolphins are to be close to the 8, Isaiah Katoa is probably another guy that you'd throw in there in the honourable mentions rank. Himself and Luai for me would probably be the only two to get close to this list. Katoa under Christian Wolf, we've seen hints of it for he's with his footy for Tonga and obviously throughout the season as well. He's had some massive games. Penrith only beat the Dolphins, I think, by 1 point. And, a key part of that was Isaiah Katoa and the footy that he was playing, ex-Penrith Junior as well, being in that system for a little bit. He is an absolute gun. There's only positive things that guys at Penrith say about Isaiah Katoa and his footy. I think that he is going to be one of the greater halfbacks, obviously, as we go in the next few years. He's definitely going to be one of those guys that maybe in 2027, 2030, he'll be on this sort of list for me. So Isaiah Katoa is definitely going to be one to watch as well, depending on how the Dolphins go. They've got a decent pack behind them, an experienced pack, but also some great stars in that team. And the key one of them is Herbie Farnworth, who we had as the best centre by the end of 2025 as well. So really excited for Isaiah Katoa. Him and Luai, probably the only two honourable mentions in that list. Guys, that's it for this one. We did halfbacks. We did 5'8". Tomorrow is going to be second rowers. We're going to go second rowers on Thursday. Tomorrow is Wednesday. No, we're going to do second rowers on Friday. Today's Thursday as this is coming out to you guys. We're going to do second rowers on Friday. We are going to do front row forwards on Saturday. We're going to do hookers on Sunday. You know what? We're going to combine front row and second row for Friday. We're going to combine hooker and lock for Sunday. And then Monday, we're going to do our overall rankings for 2025. By the end of 2025, who are the top 5 overall players for the year as well? Throwing a little bit of cap in the rank for you. So that works out nicely. Obviously, the following week is going to be the introduction of our season previews. You would know the first guest by now, just in case I'm not going to say it. Just in case. Oh, no, because this is going to be coming out after I record the episode. You know what? I'm going to say it. Announcement. If you haven't seen the post yet, too bad. Part 2 was Para Cave, which was obviously already come out on the Instagram. But part 1 is going to be the Cast Patrol boys. That's going to be really exciting. We are going to be covering the Tigers, Storm, and Rabbitohs. At time of recording, I haven't recorded the episode with Cast Patrol. I'm going to record it tomorrow, which will be Wednesday. This podcast is going to come out on Thursday. So, by the time this comes out to you guys, that episode will be recorded. It'll be announced on the Instagram. But the Cast Patrol boys, they'll be going to be coming on the podcast. We're going to be talking about Tigers, Storm, and Rabbitohs. Para Cave, it's going to be the Eels, Panthers, and Roosters. And on Friday, I'm going to be recording with another special guest as well. It's a big week. And then Sunday, recording with another guest, not for a season preview, but for an off-season interview. It's going to be some great week of filming content and getting things set up for you guys. But more importantly, next week, season previews, kicking off with the Cast Patrol, going into Para Cave. We then have two Supercoach creators for parts 4 and 5. We've got another creator there for part 3, which is a little bit less known, but I've just sort of seen him posting some great content over the past year or so and thought, you know what, he'd be a great guy to have on the podcast. Had a few yarns with him with content and things like that, doing some content with him for the international side predictions, things like that. I thought he'd be a great guy to get on the podcast. He's got some great knowledge on the game. And then, part 6 is going to be a real special guest. And just to give you a bit of a clue, he'll be playing in the Sportshed TV charity match in the front row. So let me know who you think that one is going to be. But definitely some great content coming for you guys over the next week or so. Following that, we're going to be going to the Sportshed TV charity match and being a spectator. Hopefully the following year we get to go there as a player. But we're going to see if we can potentially get some content out of the day there as well. Might bring a few road mics and the camera and just roam around and shoot the shit with some people as well. So that will be interesting to see. But make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube. You don't miss any of that great content. Just as well, guys, obviously I've announced on the podcast as well they'll be playing for Southeastern in season 2025. Let me know if you want some vlog content and things like that, like day in the lives of, a club athlete or whatever. I know that I'm no KP or Chad Townsend or these sort of guys that do content and play NRL. But let us know if that's something that sort of interests you, that sort of content. And I'll certainly look into it. And what any other content that you want to see on the podcast, let us know below in the comments section below. Subscribe to the YouTube, hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss any of the great content. The Cast Patrol episode is going to be absolutely insane. Para Cave filled with some great rugby league knowledge. And especially we're talking about the Eels, with an Eels fan and an Eels tragic. I think it's some really great content as well. So get stuck into that great content. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, get stuck into that. Any questions you have, Spotify comments, YouTube comments, I'll get into all of those. I'm very good with the YouTube comments. Not so good with the Spotify comments, but we're certainly getting there. So make sure you engage with that great content. Follow us on Instagram as well. Exclusive content on there. The TikTok, we're sort of starting to get up and running soon as well with the reels that are going to come out for these season previews. So stay tuned for that. We'll see you guys in the next one.